So, I've been letting this video play in my mind for quite a while now, and I think I want to talk about it now, because, dear lord, there are a lot of things wrong with this review. Like, a lot of things wrong with this review. And a lot of people agree with me on that. You probably know the popular cartoon reviewer, TheMysteriousMrEnter, for better or worse. I think his reviews are pretty good, but videos like this are exceptions. Honestly, Nicorama was one of the worst things he's ever done. If you don't know what Nicorama is, it's basically a marathon of every single original Nickelodeon cartoon ever made. You can probably already see why this wasn't a good idea. And his review of Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is probably the biggest example of why an idea like this is horrible. Now, before we get into this review, I should probably state that I am not the biggest fan of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles franchise, but despite that, I actually do quite enjoy Rise of the TMNT a bit. However, for the sake of not sounding like a toxic fanboy, I will remove all of my biases towards the show so I can accurately critique this review. With that out of the way, let's get into it.
I said that the 2012 version was a really good entry point to the series, because before this marathon I hadn't really been acquainted with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Now that I have, I can tell you that this series was either made for people who haven't seen the original, don't like anything about the original, or it's been made by people who either haven't seen the original or don't like it.
From what I've searched, the writers of Rise of the TMNT have actually written previous incarnations of the franchise. So you really can't say that Rise is written by people who haven't seen or don't like the original when they themselves wrote it. That doesn't really make that much sense. Also, how do you know if this show isn't like the original when you yourself said, not even 30 seconds ago, you aren't acquainted with the franchise? And even if it's not like the original show, who cares? It's literally called Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Even as someone who hasn't seen any other incarnation of the franchise, excluding the 2012 version, I can tell that the writers just wanted to put a spin on something that was probably becoming tiresome.
Even if I had never seen anything else Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles related, I probably would not like this show. Because this show reminds me of a lot of bad reboots. Most notably, Teen Titans Go, which the show is compared to a lot. And it makes it very haunting to me to how influential Teen Titans Go was. Take a show that has a mixture of very serious moments and comedy, and then you just pretend that the series was never serious, and couldn't possibly be serious no matter what. It'd be ridiculous if this concept tried to take itself seriously ever.
First of all, the Rise of the TMNT and Teen Titans Go comparison needs to die. Comparing Teen Titans Go to Rise of the TMNT is an insult to people who work day and night on this show. They are nothing alike. Rise of the TMNT has a gigantic amount of effort put into it, from the animation, to the writing, to the characters, to the overarching narrative. Teen Titans Go has no effort put into it whatsoever. In fact, they make several episodes stating that they know full well that they know that they're bad, but they don't care. So, can we not compare these two shows anymore? Second, we get it! You don't like Teen Titans Go. The entire cartoon community has torn that show 5 new assholes. Give it a rest already and get back to your review. Also, for your information, Rise does take itself seriously when it needs to. Oh, but I'm sorry, I forgot you wouldn't know that because you watched like 2 episodes of the show before you made this review.
You want to know one of the biggest reasons that people have been so hostile towards shows like Teen Titans Go and Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles?
Because they don't bother to actually watch the show and judge it because it's different? Or because they go off the first few episodes and not at least half a season?
It's because this is not what superhero shows are anymore. They haven't been this way for over a decade now. Throughout most of the 20th century and even up to the early 2000s, superheroes were usually campy and corny. There were some exceptions like Batman the Animated Series, but those were, generally speaking, exceptions. Superheroes would fight ridiculous bad guys and shout one-liners. The whole appeal was their powers or the personalities, or in the worst case scenarios, their outfits. You weren't really supposed to think deeply about their implications or the kind of world that they found themselves in. Like I said, with some exceptions. Then something changed along the way. We had series like Teen Titans or Justice League, which took themselves more seriously and treated these superheroes more as characters, rather than ambiguous forces of good, or something like that. This would come to its apex with Nolan's The Dark Knight, which permanently changed the genre of what a superhero is. Nowadays, shows like Teen Titans Go and Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles don't just look corny, but they look like an active regression.
What are you even talking about? So, he says that superhero shows used to be shows you didn't have to look deeply into, and their appeal is the powers and personality. That's basically the appeal of Rise, buddy. Hell, Leo's personality is basically saying one-liners, and they're funny. So, what's the problem here?
on topic here. I do not think that this is a good interpretation of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles franchise. Now, I did say that the 2012 version did change up some things from the source material, and I am okay with the principle of changing things for an interpretation, as long as you do it respectfully and with purpose. Some things don't age as well as others, and the context of certain aspects of piece of media can change over time. The problem is when we make changes haphazardly or for no reason at all. Not all the changes in this series are bad per se, and many of them may be based on my personal preference. One of the changes that I'm not so keen on is the weapons the Turtles use. Traditionally, have been changed up in the series for far more futuristic devices. You know, like a yo-yo. I do think that making the series seem like it's more futuristic is probably on the right track, although it does give me a Lunatics Unleashed feel, which is not a good thing, but it's something that I could see working within the Ninja Turtles franchise. Changing up their weapons, on the other hand, no, I think that's an outright disrespectful change.
Okay, at this point, I straight up just don't understand. What exactly is wrong with changing up the weapons that the Turtles use? It's not like any of their personalities are changed, so I don't get it. But let's watch a little bit more, and we might get some insight onto
what the weapons that the Turtles use are iconic, and not to mention, they're ninjas. I kind of think that ninjas should use weapons that are considered traditionally for ninjas.
Did you at least try to pay attention? They literally stated in the first episode, which I really hope you watch all 22 minutes of, that they are using ancient mystic weapons. And they are ninja weapons, mind you. Leo has an Odashi sword, Raph has Tonfas, Mikey has his Kasari Fundu, and Donnie has his high-tech bow staff. Even then, that's only because Donnie is the smart one. So, how the hell is this disrespectful to the original in any way whatsoever?
I said that in most versions of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the 2012 version included, I had a bit of difficulty figuring out who was who based on visuals alone. Different colored masks and weapons wasn't enough of a distinction. Rise does fix this, but I think it goes a bit too far into the opposite direction. These redesigns, they probably would have been great if this was the first incarnation of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles ever, but after 30 years, a change like this is jarring. It's just too much too fast. Like, I would be okay if we got here eventually, but it feels like there was a few steps missing along the way.
From what I've seen in different images of different incarnations, they've been changing from show to show. Even in the 2012 version, which you seem to be holding up on a pedestal. So, what exactly is the problem here? Also, I think the fact that all the turtles are different species is honestly pretty cool, and it gives them a distinct design that makes them more recognizable.
Unfortunately, they're not the only characters that have changed, and they're not the characters that have changed in the worst way. What the fuck did you do to Splinter? In every other version, he's this wise mentor. In this version, he's every fucking dumbass dad, every bumbling mentor old drunk that you've seen a million goddamn times. If you want to change it, whatever, I can understand that. Why would you want to change something relatively unique into something so goddamn cliche?
I love how you say that Splinter is a dumbass dad stereotype while showing his most defining moment in the whole show, at least until Battle Nexus New York. Although, considering the fact that he has an editor put all these clips in, I have to wonder if whoever the editor is giving us a subtle hint that he didn't like the review either. Anyway, Splinters is not a dumbass dad trope. He might start off as not the best father figure, but at least he tries to be a good father and train the turtles in the later half of Season 1. Not to mention that he has so many great moments throughout this arc, like the one you literally showed on screen of him standing up to the main villain of the series to save the turtles after they get captured. This just further proves my point that you didn't bother to watch any more than the first couple episodes. And when you are critiquing a story-heavy series like Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, you need to understand the entire story.
And then we have April O'Neil, who they gave a race swap in this show because this show is progressive like that, even though they gave her an incredibly stereotypical way of talking, like to the point where some people could probably find it offensive. And they also gave her the personality of Scrappy-Doo. We've gone from somebody who was relatively intelligent and who at least was able to help the turtles with their plans, to someone who rushes in stupidly and fights mutant combatants while bragging about it and then getting punted by them, because the show is progressive like that.
Progressive? What? What are you talking about? From my sources, April has been portrayed as an African-American woman in comics. And even if that wasn't the case, nothing about her screams, "I'm a black person, so I'm progressive." Going from what I've seen in the 2012 version, she hasn't really changed that much from then to here. If anything, she's a lot more helpful to the team. For example, in the episode Shadow of Evil, She sneaks into the Foot Clan to get information on the Dark Armor and their plan to revive Shredder. In many unhappy returns, she helps the Turtles fight Shredder, while Leo and Splinter go get a Mystic Collar. Most importantly, in Endgame, she single-handedly helped defeat Shredder. Had she not have told the Turtles that the armor that was possessing Baron Jaxum had a flaw, they all would have been killed in that episode. What I'm trying to say is that Abel is fine, stop making a mountain out of a molehill.
But let's put all the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle stuff aside. How does this show fare on its own? How is it if you've never heard of the franchise before? It doesn't. The animation is really, really bad. The animation is really, really bad. The animation is really, really bad.
Okay, you have got to be kidding me. You can't just say that the animation is bad after you show those really good, really fluid fight scenes. You're contradicting yourself heavily. Look, I see that a lot of characters are a little jumpy when they move, but that's because it's a stylistic choice called limited animation. David Trope states that limited animation is, quote, the practice of using mix and match parts in animation rather than having a completely new drawing for every new frame, unquote. This technique is to save time and cost because shows like Rise of the Tmnt need to keep a consistent budget. And for the scenes that aren't jumpy, a la the fight scenes, they are amazing and can carry an episode on its own. If you don't like the show, that is completely fine. You can subjectively like or dislike the show in any way you want. However, objectively, the animation is the best element of the show. Also, from what I know, the animation is hand-drawn. So just imagine all the people who spend hours upon hours on perfecting these top-notch fight scenes who you just insulted because of your bias towards the series. Let's just finish this.
This show can bite me. I'm not the biggest fan of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but it's shows and reboots like this that make me glad that I'm not. Because even though I'm not, I feel the disgrace that this show is to the franchise. And yeah, I hear that it gets better. But with how the beginning is, there's no reason to stick around.
So you just admitted that you didn't even bother to watch at least half the season and just judged the show by the first couple episodes. Yeah, okay, we're done here. I'm not talking about the rest of this. Jesus Christ, what a horrible review. It was nothing more than him being biased against the show and never once giving actually accurate criticism. He says one thing, but he just leaves it there and barely elaborates on anything he says. Again, when you are talking about a story-heavy series like Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, you can't do that. You need to know the full story behind the series before you critique it. You did that just fine for Korra. You can do that for Rise of the TMNT. Korra had 4 seasons. This show barely has 2. You got no excuse. All the complaints you gave felt like you had them because you went into the series wanting to hate it, while putting the previous version on a pedestal. Actually watch a decent amount of the series, like the first season or so, and if you're willing to make a follow-up review on it, I'll be more than happy to watch it, and maybe I can see why you don't like it. But until then, I'm calling this your worst review today. I'm a Big Kid Reviews, and if you'll excuse me, I gotta watch that season finale again.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.